Imagine a world thrown into chaos. An empire, once mighty and expanding, suddenly brought to its knees. This was the world of Mehmed I. He was born around the year 1386, a son of the powerful Ottoman Sultan Bayezid I. His mother was Devlet Hatun. As a young prince, or Shahzad, Mehmed grew up in a palace filled with the promise of power and conquest. He learned about governance, military strategy, and the arts. He was part of a dynasty that seemed destined to rule vast lands, stretching from the heart of Anatolia into the Balkans in southeastern Europe. His future looked bright, secured by the strength of his father's armies and the ever-expanding borders of their domain. This was a time of great confidence for the Ottoman state. Mehmed was not just any prince, he was one of several sons of Sultan Bayezid. This meant he had brothers, and in the Ottoman tradition, brotherhood was often a complicated and dangerous relationship. Each prince was a potential successor to the throne, and this created a natural rivalry among them. To prepare them for this future, each prince was often sent to govern a province. This was a form of training. Mehmed was appointed as the governor of a region around Amasya, a city in Anatolia. Here, he learned the practical skills of administration. He learned how to manage people, collect taxes, and lead soldiers. This experience would prove to be incredibly important in the difficult years that were to come for him and his family. Life in the late 14th century Ottoman court was a mix of opulence and danger. The Ottomans had established themselves as a formidable power, but they were surrounded by rivals. To the east, new powers were rising. To the west, European kingdoms watched the Ottoman advance with great concern. Mehmed would have been aware of these pressures from a very young age. He would have witnessed his father, Bayezid, leading campaigns that earned him the nickname Yildirim, or the Thunderbolt, for the speed of his military movements. This environment shaped Mehmed into a thoughtful and resilient young man, qualities that would be tested to their absolute limit. He was living on the edge of history, about to be plunged into a crisis that would threaten to destroy everything his ancestors had built. The early years of Mehmed's life were a prelude to a storm. He was a prince of a great empire, but that empire's foundations were about to be shaken to their very core. His education, his training as a governor, and his understanding of the delicate balance of power were all crucial preparations for an unforeseen future. No one could have predicted the scale of the disaster that was approaching. The story of Mehmed I is not just the story of a sultan, it is the story of survival, of pulling a state back from the brink of total collapse. It is a tale of a long and bitter struggle, not against foreign enemies, but against his own flesh and blood, for the soul of the empire itself. The year 1402 marks a terrifying turning point in Ottoman history. A new, formidable conqueror emerged from the east. His name was Timur, also known in the west as Tamerlane. He was a Turco-Mongol leader who had built a vast and brutal empire across Central Asia. Timur saw the rising power of the Ottomans as a direct challenge to his own authority. Sultan Bayezid I, confident after many victories, met Timur's enormous army on the plains near Ankara. The Battle of Ankara was a disaster for the Ottomans. Their army, which had seemed invincible for decades, was utterly crushed. It was a catastrophic defeat that sent shockwaves across the entire region. The consequences of this single battle were enormous. Sultan Bayezid I, the Thunderbolt, was captured by Timur's forces. This was a humiliation from which the Ottomans had never before suffered. The sight of their sultan being taken prisoner was a devastating blow to the morale and prestige of the empire. Bayezid would later die in captivity, leaving a massive power vacuum. Without a sultan firmly on the throne, the empire was left leaderless and vulnerable. The central authority that had held the diverse territories together simply vanished overnight. The state that had been built over a century of conquest began to fracture and fall apart. Timur did not stop with the capture of the Sultan. His armies marched through Anatolia, the heartland of the Ottoman Empire. They sacked major cities, including the Ottoman capital of Bursa. They destroyed towns and villages, leaving a trail of devastation. Timur's goal was not just to defeat the Ottoman army, but to break the Ottoman state itself. He freed the local Anatolian principalities, known as beyliks, which the Ottomans had previously conquered. These local rulers, once subjects of the Sultan, now declared their independence again. Suddenly, Anatolia was no longer a unified territory under Ottoman control, but a patchwork of rival states, just as it had been a century before. This period of chaos is known as the Ottoman Interregnum, or the Ottoman Civil War. It was a time of complete disarray. The mighty empire was shattered. The sons of Bayezid, who had managed to escape from the battlefield at Ankara, now found themselves not as princes of a powerful state, but as rivals scrambling to claim the remnants of their father's broken kingdom. Each prince controlled a different piece of the former empire, and each believed he was the rightful heir. The defeated Ankara did not just create an external threat, it ignited a devastating internal conflict that would last for more than a decade and threatened to erase the Ottoman name from history forever. After the disaster at Ankara, the Ottoman Empire was like a shattered mirror. The sons of Sultan Bayezid I, who had survived the battle, each held a piece of the broken realm. This dark period, lasting from 1402 to 1413, is known as the Ottoman Interregnum. It was a time without a single recognized sultan. Instead, several brothers fought fiercely against one another to seize control. The four main contenders were Suleiman, Isa, Musa, and Mehmed. Each brother established his own court and his own small territory. The unified empire of their father was gone, replaced by a brutal and destructive civil war that pitted brother against brother. Suleiman Çelebi was the eldest. He managed to escape to the European part of the empire, the Balkans. He established his capital in Edirne and declared himself sultan. He controlled the rich and important Ottoman provinces in Europe. To secure his position, he made treaties with the Byzantine Empire and other European powers, often giving up Ottoman lands to gain their support. In Anatolia, his brother Isa Çelebi established his rule in the former capital of Bursa. He tried to claim the heartland of the old empire for himself. The empire was now split between two continents, with a different brother ruling each part. Meanwhile, the youngest brother, Mehmed Çelebi, had secured his position in Amasya. This was the region he had governed before the war. It was a smaller and less wealthy territory compared to what his brothers controlled. However, his position in central Anatolia gave him a strong base of support among the local Turkish population. He was seen by many as a more legitimate leader than his brothers, who were making deals with foreign powers. From his base in Amasya, Mehmed began the long and difficult process of consolidating his power, fighting not only his brothers but also the newly independent Anatolian beyliks that surrounded him. A fourth brother, Musa Çelebi, had initially been captured with his father at Ankara. He was later released by Timur and joined Mehmed in Anatolia for a time. However, he soon launched his own bid for power. He crossed into the Balkans and challenged Suleiman for control of the European provinces. The civil war was a complex and constantly shifting web of alliances and betrayals. The brothers fought each other, made temporary alliances, and then broke them. The people of the empire suffered greatly during this decade of constant warfare, as armies marched back and forth across the land, bringing destruction and instability wherever they went. Mehmed Çelebi began his long journey to the throne from a position of relative weakness. While his brother Suleiman held the wealthy European territories and Isa controlled the old capital of Bursa, Mehmed was based in the more modest town of Amasya. He knew he could not defeat all his rivals at once. He needed to be patient, strategic, and clever. His first major challenge was his brother Isa, who ruled the nearby lands in western Anatolia. The two brothers fought several battles for control of this crucial region. Mehmed showed great military skill and determination, slowly pushing Isa's forces back. The struggle against Isa was a critical test for Mehmed. It was not a single, decisive battle, but a series of campaigns. Mehmed had to win the support of local lords and soldiers, convincing them that he was the best hope for a stable future. He used both force and diplomacy to achieve his goals. After several years of fighting, Mehmed finally defeated Isa's army. Isa fled and was eventually captured and executed around 1406. With this victory, Mehmed consolidated his control over a large part of Anatolia. He had eliminated one of his main rivals and significantly expanded his territory and resources. This success made him a much more formidable contender for the throne. While Mehmed was fighting Isa in Anatolia, another drama was unfolding in the Balkans. His other two brothers, Suleiman and Musa, were locked in a bitter conflict for control of the European provinces. Mehmed cleverly decided to support Musa in this fight. He saw an opportunity to weaken Suleiman, who was the most powerful of the brothers at the time. By encouraging Musa's rebellion, Mehmed could keep his rivals busy fighting each other while he strengthened his own position in Anatolia. This was a classic strategy of divide and conquer, and it worked perfectly for him. Musa, with some encouragement from Mehmed, launched a successful campaign against Suleiman. Many of Suleiman's soldiers and officials, unhappy with his luxurious lifestyle and his concessions to European powers, deserted him and joined Musa. In 1411, Suleiman was forced to flee his capital, Edirne. He was captured and executed, leaving Musa as the sole ruler of the Ottoman territories in Europe. Now, only two brothers remained, Mehmed in Anatolia and Musa in the Balkans. The stage was set for the final confrontation that would decide the fate of the empire. Mehmed's patient and calculated strategy was paying off. With Suleiman and Isa gone, the civil war entered its final dramatic phase. The conflict was now a direct confrontation between the two remaining brothers, Mehmed, the master of Anatolia, and Musa, the ruler of the Balkans. Musa's rule in Europe quickly became harsh and unpopular. He cancelled the treaties his brother Suleiman had made with the Byzantine Empire and other Christian states, launching aggressive campaigns against them. He also alienated many powerful Ottoman officials with his severe policies. This created an opportunity for Mehmed. Many people who had once supported Musa now began to look to Mehmed as a more stable and just leader. Mehmed realized that the time was right to challenge his brother directly. He gathered his forces and prepared for the final struggle. He used his diplomatic skills to build a powerful coalition. He made an alliance with the Byzantine Emperor Manuel II Palaiologos, who was eager to get rid of the aggressive Musa. The emperor provided ships to transport Mehmed's army from Anatolia across the sea to the Balkans. Mehmed also gained the support of other Balkan Christian rulers and important Turkish lords in the region, who were tired of Musa's chaotic and tyrannical rule. This alliance was a testament to Mehmed's ability to unite different groups against a common enemy. The campaign against Musa was not easy. The first attempts by Mehmed to defeat his brother in the Balkans were unsuccessful. Musa was a skilled and fierce warrior, and his army fought hard to defend his territory. However, Mehmed was persistent. He learned from his initial setbacks and planned his next move carefully. He continued to win over more of Musa's allies and commanders, steadily weakening his brother's position. Mehmed's reputation as a fair and reliable leader spread throughout the Balkans, making it easier for him to gain supporters. He presented himself not as a conqueror, but as a liberator who would bring peace and order. The final decisive battle took place in 1413 at Chamurlu, in what is today modern-day Serbia. It was here that the armies of the two brothers met for the last time. Mehmed's forces, strengthened by his Balkan allies, were better organized and had higher morale. Musa's army, weakened by desertions, was defeated. Musa tried to escape from the battlefield, but he was captured and, following the tragic tradition of Ottoman succession, was executed. At last, after 11 long years of brutal civil war, the conflict was over. Mehmed Çelebi stood as the sole, undisputed ruler of the Ottoman lands. The interregnum had ended. In 1413, after the defeat of his last brother, Mehmed I was officially proclaimed as the Sultan of a reunited Ottoman state. The 11-year nightmare of the interregnum was finally over, but, the empire he inherited was really just a shadow of its former self. It was exhausted by more than a decade of constant warfare. The economy was in ruins, the administration was in disarray, and the military was fractured. The territories in Anatolia, which his father had worked so hard to conquer, had broken away. The authority of the Ottoman Sultan had been severely damaged. Mehmed's victory in the civil war was just the beginning of an even greater challenge, the task of rebuilding an empire from its ashes. Mehmed I's first priority was to restore peace and stability. He adopted a policy of reconciliation and forgiveness. Instead of punishing all who had fought against him, he offered peace and positions to many of the lords and commanders who had served his brothers. This clever strategy helped to heal the deep wounds of the civil war. He understood that he needed unity to rebuild the state. By showing mercy, he turned former enemies into loyal subjects. This approach was very different from the harsh methods of his brother Musa, and it earned him widespread respect and loyalty, both in Anatolia and in the Balkans. He also focused on foreign policy, but with a cautious approach. He knew the empire was too weak for aggressive expansion. His main goal was to secure his borders and maintain peace. He renewed the treaties with the Byzantine Empire and other Balkan states that his brother Musa had broken. He established friendly relations with Venice, a major maritime power. This peaceful foreign policy gave him the time and space he needed to focus on internal reconstruction. He was not a thunderbolt like his father Bayezid. Instead, he was a careful diplomat and a patient builder, earning him a different but equally important title, the Restorer. This new era of peace was essential for the empire's survival. For the first time in over a decade, the people of the Ottoman lands could begin to rebuild their lives without the constant threat of war. Farmers could return to their fields, and merchants could travel the roads safely again. The cities that had been damaged during the Civil War and Timur's invasion began to recover. Mehmed's reign was a period of calm after a terrible storm. His great achievement was not in conquering new lands, but in saving the lands he already had. He laid the foundations for the empire's future strength by first ensuring its present survival and stability. With the civil war concluded, Sultan Mehmed I began the monumental task of rebuilding the Ottoman state from the ground up. His primary focus was on re-establishing central authority across the fractured lands. He worked tirelessly to bring the independent Anatolian beyliks back under Ottoman control. These local principalities had taken advantage of the interregnum to declare their independence. Mehmed used a combination of diplomacy and military force to persuade them to accept him as their ruler. He did not seek to destroy them completely, but rather to integrate them into his reunified state, often allowing local dynasties to continue as his vassals. One of the most serious challenges to his rule came from within his own territory. A man named Sheikh Bedreddin, a charismatic religious scholar and former judge in Musa's government, led a major rebellion. This was not just a political revolt, it was a social and religious movement that preached the sharing of property in a more egalitarian society. It attracted support from a diverse group of people, including poor peasants, dervishes, and disgruntled soldiers in both the Balkans and Anatolia. The rebellion was a serious threat to the social order and the authority of the Sultan, showing just how fragile the newly restored peace really was. Mehmed I had to act decisively to crush this uprising. He sent his armies against Bedreddin's followers, and after a series of difficult battles, the rebellion was suppressed in 1420. Sheikh Bedreddin himself was captured and executed. Although the rebellion was defeated, it revealed the deep social tensions that existed within the empire after the long period of chaos. It showed that Mehmed's work of creating a stable and unified state was far from over. The incident highlighted the need for a strong central government that could maintain law and order and address the grievances of its subjects. Despite these challenges, Mehmed successfully restored the core institutions of the Ottoman state. He reorganized the army, ensuring its loyalty to him alone. He reformed the administration and the tax system to get the economy moving again. He repaired roads and bridges, encouraging trade and communication between the different parts of his empire. His reign was a period of intense construction and consolidation. Every action he took was aimed at strengthening the foundations of the state so that it could withstand future crises. He was a practical and pragmatic ruler, an architect of peace who understood that a strong house must be built on a solid foundation. Beyond his political and military achievements, Sultan Mehmed I was also a significant patron of art, architecture, and culture. After years of destruction, his reign marked the beginning of a cultural revival. He understood that a great empire needed not only a strong army, but also a vibrant cultural identity. He invested heavily in construction projects, especially in the cities that had suffered during the war. His patronage helped to define a new style of Ottoman architecture, one that blended older traditions with new influences, creating something uniquely Ottoman. This period of artistic growth was a clear sign that the empire was recovering. The most famous example of his architectural patronage is the magnificent Yeşil Kulliye, or Green Complex, in Bursa. This complex includes a mosque, a tomb, a madrasa, and a public kitchen. The Yeşil Cami, or Green Mosque, is particularly famous for its stunning interior, decorated with beautiful green and blue tiles. This building is considered a masterpiece of early Ottoman art. Mehmed I also commissioned his own tomb, the Yeşil Türbe, or Green Tomb, within this complex. The intricate tilework and elegant design of these buildings demonstrated a renewed confidence and prosperity. They were a statement that the Ottoman dynasty was back, and it was here to stay. Mehmed I also supported literature and learning. He gathered poets, scholars, and artists at his court. The stability of his reign allowed for intellectual life to flourish once again. Many important works of history and poetry were written during this time, often with the Sultan's encouragement and financial support. This created a sense of shared history and culture that helped to unify the diverse peoples of the empire. By patronizing the arts, Mehmed was not just beautifying his cities. He was helping to craft a new Ottoman identity after the trauma of the Civil War. This cultural flourishing was a crucial part of the healing process for the empire. The construction of beautiful mosques and schools sent a powerful message of hope and renewal. It showed that the Sultan was invested in the long-term well-being of his people, not just in short-term military gains. The art and architecture of Mehmed I's time reflect the character of his reign. They are elegant, orderly, and well-crafted, symbolizing the peace and stability he worked so hard to achieve. His support for culture was just as important as his political reforms in making the Ottoman Empire whole again. The reign of Sultan Mehmed I was relatively short, lasting only 8 years from 1413 to 1421. However, its importance to the history of the Ottoman Empire cannot be overstated. He inherited a state on the verge of complete collapse, torn apart by external invasion and internal strife. When he died, he left behind a reunified, stable, and recovering empire. For this incredible achievement, he is often given the honorific title of the second founder of the Ottoman Empire. Without his leadership, patience, and diplomatic skill, the empire might well have disintegrated completely in the early 15th century. Mehmed's success was built on his character. He was not a flamboyant conqueror like his father, Bayezid, or his great-grandson, Mehmed the Conqueror, who would later capture Constantinople. Instead, he was a pragmatist, a diplomat, and a consolidator. He knew when to fight and when to make peace. He understood the importance of building alliances and healing the divisions within his own society. His victory in the brutal civil war was a testament to his strategic mind and his ability to inspire loyalty. He was the right leader at the right time, providing the calm and steady hand that the shattered empire so desperately needed. His legacy is visible in the physical structures he built, like the beautiful Green Mosque in Bursa, which stands to this day as a symbol of the empire's rebirth. But his more profound legacy is the empire itself. He restored the central authority of the Sultan, re-established control over Anatolia, and pacified the Balkans through diplomacy. He created the stability that allowed his son, Murad II, and his grandson, Mehmed II, to go on and expand the empire to its greatest heights. They built upon the solid foundation that Mehmed I had so painstakingly laid. In conclusion, the story of Mehmed I is a powerful lesson in resilience and leadership. It shows how a single, determined individual can pull a state back from the brink of annihilation. He was the Sultan who ended a civil war, reunited a kingdom, and restored hope to his people. While other sultans are famous for the cities they conquered, Mehmed I is remembered for the empire he saved. His reign was the critical bridge between the near destruction of the Ottoman state at Ankara and its eventual rise as one of the world's most powerful empires. He was truly the second founder, the man who gave the Ottomans a second chance at history.